These are Laura petalums growing in here. This is the green variety. There's also a purple leaf variety. These have the little white leaves in there. They will grow up over time. They can get quite large, but they're not the fastest growing plants, so it'll take some time, but they will grow in, fill in. They should not be clipped or hedged to try to make them round. We want to just keep it a very natural hedge to grow in here. We talked about the oxalis a little bit before. It's already been sprayed once with Roundup. We want to get on that before it has a chance to get established in the winter time and start spreading. They grow by little tiny onions under the soil, and so if we just pull off the top, it'll look nice, but it'll come right back. So the Roundup is the best treatment for this, and anywhere where it's growing underneath the plant and we can't use the spray, that's where we'll just have to dig it out, but dig down a little deeper. If it becomes a chronic problem, like around the plants, I've seen sometimes people put little plastic skirts around there, around the plant when the sun comes out, so you can just kind of bake it in some clear plastic, but it looks kind of ugly, and I don't know if it's something we want to get into, but it is something that I'd just strongly recommend we do everything we can to get on top of it right now. The hedge, you can see some of this new growth. This is the Photinia hedge. You see the new leaves are kind of red there. We'll walk down here to this hedge right now and see how that's doing. We've got the new growth coming out, and I think it's probably getting water from the irrigation right now, even if it's just rolling down the hill. But I think during this winter time we'll see a lot of spurt of growth there, and it'll come. You'll see it's coming down from down below here as well, so that will fill in. It's going to take a little bit of time, but that should do it. And then you have the views there. You can decide later on if you want to take those down too, but these should fill in fairly nicely. I'm glad to see the new growth is coming in now. Okay?
How often do you spray?
The Roundup?
Yes. How often, how many times a year?
Well, it's usually depending on how much you have there. I think if you do it one application once, you could wait a week or 10 days before you do it a second time. And again, it needs to be sprayed when the temperatures are over 60 degrees, and usually not right after you've irrigated. You want to get them kind of dry, so they really want to suck up any moisture, and then you give them the moisture in the form of the Roundup. They suck that in, it goes down to the roots and kills them. But if there's a lot of them and it doesn't get quite enough of the Roundup, they'll come back. So that's why it could take 2 or 3 applications to get this going.
And it should not be very windy, otherwise it will spread to the good plants.
Exactly, and not to mention lungs of the people spraying it. So that's the Laura petalum in the corner. We have that going back in through here.
Oh wait, they're different?
Those are growing in the back.
Oh, all those are different.
All there until we get to here to this plant.
Okay.
This is a quince. So it has, in the springtime, you'll see nice, big, bright red flowers like you've seen in Japanese paintings and things like that. And it could have even little tiny fruits on there. The fruits, you can make quince jam out of them if you want to. Sometimes they're just fragrant. If you pick them, they're kind of fuzzy little things. You can put them in a bowl in the kitchen or something. They'll smell nice. But those are the flowering quince. This is a hydrangea. It's a variegated hydrangea, a hydrangea tricolor. The brown leaves here are from earlier on when they were planted, when we had the irrigation problems. These will lose all their leaves in the winter time, and they'll be bare. But they'll come back in the spring, and since the winter is really mild here, it's just a short period of time, they can be pruned back very easily. And you prune them back just to the next set of leaves where the buds will come out, and then they'll get 2 branches coming out there. There's probably not a whole lot of pruning that we need to do here. The more sun they get, the less pruning they need, but down where it's really shady, they get there's more distance between the leaves, and then we can come back and prune that down occasionally just to keep them tight. This is Acanthus mollis, or bear's breech, and that will get about this big with glossy leaves and little spiky flowers that'll last there for a long time. They're not fragrant or anything, but it's just kind of architectural looking. We have these in a few different spots here because they'll take full sun or full shade. A real versatile plant, and doesn't need a whole lot of water either. But if it doesn't get enough irrigation, it goes dormant in the summertime. It shouldn't be a problem here since we have everything irrigated. Over here is the sage plant from Chiapas in Mexico. This will take sun or a good deal of shade too. These can get fairly big. They can grow up pretty tall. And usually I recommend once they kind of start growing up and get their size, you can come back once a year and just prune them back.
What time of year usually?
Usually before all the new growth comes in, so you don't waste the new growth, you know, let it grow in and then cut it back.
So what month would that be typically?
That's probably around March or something like that, early March, depending when the weather starts to warm up. But you'll see, I mean, they probably won't need any pruning for the first year, but they will get fairly big and tall with the leaves there, but they could be cut down really low and they'll grow back. I'd recommend that they just, you know, you could cut them back by, if you do it once a year, then you're not going to lose the flowers during the rest of the year. So you could cut them back almost by 50%. I would start with maybe just by a third first, see how they do here. The ones in the sun are going to grow faster and bigger than the ones in the shade, but the ones in the shade might get a little lankier too. So they're really versatile. It's hard to do too much to hurt these or ruin them. By cutting them back, they will grow back really fast. And so that's the Chiapas sage.
Is that the same sage that we use as
Spice?
Cookie? No, that's a different type of sage. So this is really you could say it's non-edible. You could use these flowers on, you know, on your plates if you're decorating food and stuff like that.
Okay.
They're not poisonous, but they're not really edible. So,
Okay.
so we have a lot of these plants down here. Again, more hydrangeas. These are hebes. They have
Your favorite.
the hebes. They've got purple flowers. That's the same plant as a variegated form, and these should grow eventually about 5 feet tall. They're not really super fast growing, but they're pretty versatile plants, and they really do well in this area. Again, the sage is going to grow a lot faster than the hebes. So in the beginning, it'll look like it's taller in the front than in the back, but eventually these will grow and catch up and do fine. And the variegated ones have the same requirements as the non-variegated ones.
What is that plant over there by itself?
This is another one of the quince. It is another one of the quince with the big red flowers.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
It's healthy enough. It's going to survive. It looks kind of.
It got a little dry here. You can tell it's.
Or is it being eaten by gopher?
Well, right now it's pretty darn dry in there.
Okay.
Francisco, maybe we could just check the irrigation on that afterwards and make sure that that's getting irrigated. That's the only thing. I think if you look at the browning there, it looks more like an irrigation problem than a gopher problem.
What about these? Are these weeds, or should we let them grow? Are they?
These we should take out here. This is a eucalyptus thing that's growing in. And again, if we're going to be spraying with Roundup, it's probably good just to spray that to go down to the roots. There's a little wild toyon growing here. These are actually oak trees. They're little scrub oaks that are growing in, which are nice, but there's not enough room for everybody. So I think now's the time to get rid of those too.
Alright. So even all those along the fence should be taken out then?
Yeah, these are all those wild plum. These are all different type of oaks. Those are, in my mind, all
Weeds.
all weeds.
For this garden.
And the hedge will grow back in, and it'll grow more on the sunny side, but it'll fill in eventually here too. And here in the corner we have Escalonia.
I don't know which one you
There's 2 plants here of Escalonia. And this is, well, it's moisture down at the bottom, but it's also pretty dry. Escalonia is a pretty maintenance-free plant. They'll grow up fairly tall. If there's any pruning required, it's probably just to keep the space between the Escallonia and the crepe myrtle here, but I doubt there's going to be really much pruning for that. They tend to grow upright first, and then they'll get a little wider. In terms of pruning, what we're going to have here is maybe as the crepe myrtle grows up, is cutting back some of the. This is the crepe myrtle. They flower white, and we may come back and flip some of this away here later on to give the crepe myrtle a little more room to grow up. I would say all these little branches down at the bottom here can be pulled off. Usually I like to just pull them off by hand, because if you use a clipper, then they tend to grow back like a nice, but if you kind of pull them off like that and it takes the bark and some of the cambium with it, then they tend not to grow back. But we just want to keep the, as it grows up here, we'll just keep the lower growth free so that, and again, that's a process over time, but Francisco is in the next 2 to 3 years, we just kind of want to shape that so you see the nice trunks. And these are deciduous too. They lose their leaves in the winter time, but they have a very nice bark as they grow up. And
What time of year would you trim them?
just trimming those lower branches that could happen at any time of the year. I would probably tend to do any type of pruning I do once it starts growing. The way it used to be done was for farmers that do their pruning in the winter time, but then you have exposed little scabs on the trunk that kind of allow for bacteria to get in. The farmers did it just because they were too busy in the summer. So I would wait until the new growth starts to come in the spring, and then you could pull it off and it heals over faster. That's pretty much the standard these days.
Okay.
So we have a lot of the same plants down here.
What is this one that is old here?
Well, this is a different type of Escallonia growing in here too. These are smaller growing ones. This is a giant big one here, but again, I think as these grow in, we want to screen what's back there behind the fence, but I would take that out a little at a time, but kind of let this grow in, and then maybe next year we could just start taking a little bit off the top and a little bit off the edge there. That'll give these plants a little more room to grow and get a little more sunlight, allow the sunlight to come in. Redwoods and everything else here we have, again, this could eventually be kind of cut down again, but that's not on the urgent list. Let's get this growing up now for the first year or even 2, but then later on at some point those could be shaped a little bit. And we have the same plant varieties growing all the way down here. The redwoods are fine as the hedge, just kind of leaving them here as they are. And why don't we just cut and we'll just meet up at the top of the stairs there.
Sounds great.